I'd like to say good morning, St. Louis. First of all, I'd like to thank all of you that came on and said such nice things when I was in St. Louis. And I apologize I didn't get a chance to see most of you. I wish I could have just had a gathering and we all could have just came together and could have all just hugged and reminisced about the good times that we had at Vashon and growing up as children. And hopefully we'll get to that point. Hopefully soon. There's so much going on. I had a chance to travel went through the village, place that I grew up, and there's a lot of work that needs to be done in St. Louis, but not just St. Louis, but all over the world. And it's our responsibility, both male and female, to travel deeper into truth and find out why we are continuously going through the same cycles over and over and over again. Nothing's changing. I think I have somewhat of an understanding as to why this is occurring. And I'm going to hopefully share this with you as best as I can. And I'm hoping that you can just listen to this video over and over again and see if it resonates with what many don't necessarily understand. I'm going to start with the division with the Republicans and Democrats. And why is there a division between the Republicans and Democrats? Why is there division between black and white? Why is there division between different religion, countries, cities, states, and gangs? I believe this is occurring because we haven't completely opened our eyes to the truth, meaning that we cannot see, nor can we hear. Imagine if you were capable of hearing at 100%, but you were only hearing at 2%. However, you didn't know that there was something beyond 2 because the 2 was the 100% in your mind. So you stuck with 2% and you thought that was the maximum you were capable of hearing, but you were minus 98%. So before anyone exceeded 2%, everyone perished. So they didn't know there was something beyond the 2%. So in other words, that little bit of space in which they were actually dwelling was not enough for everyone to live, because being that you only had minimum mind power, knowing that you did not know that you had minimum mind power, you thought that was the max. You got married, you had families, you went to college, subsequently you went to a nursing home, you went to the grave, all within the 2%. And that was all you knew. You couldn't see beyond it, you couldn't perceive beyond it, so that was your truth, even though you maxed 98% of mind power. If we were living in just 2%, that would be a very small place to dwell, unbeknownst to us that there were more to see and more to hear. So we built our homes, we built our work, we built our jobs. We also came up with gasoline, electric, solar, nuclear power in 2%. But being that we were in 2%, it was a little crowded. So we became territorial, not just crowded in a sense. We didn't expand in mind. So as a result, we were suffering from neurological problems. Not that we wanted to suffer from neurological problems. It's just that we were only capable of going beyond a certain point, unbeknownst to us. So we tried to get everything that we can. We were nasty, conniving, manipulative, because you only had 2%. Now, my logic to this is if we can reach a full 100%, which is absolute negative 273.15 Celsius minus friction and heat, I believe that we would automatically become more open and more love, because 2% is not going to give you that, because it's kind of crammed and crowded. And being that you can't go beyond the 2%, you're looking at booties and breasts, you're looking at all those things that you think you need because you're only operating at 2%. So you become external, lustful. You build your religion in 2%. You build your prisons, your hospitals. You build everything in 2%. Now, many wouldn't necessarily disagree with the fact that that's what we had to do because we could only see at 2%. But once you break out of 2%, you begin to see with new eyes and hear with new ears, and you begin to understand what you thought was true wasn't true. The 2% will also keep you in the past, because once you get to 100%, you're now in the future at absolute zero. You're at the speed of light. Energy equals mass at the speed of light. So as a result, you're able to create precognition for those that are in 2%. You can see the murder before the murder happens, because before the murder happens, you operating at the speed of light, 186,000 miles per second, 300,000 kilometers. You can literally see what they're doing in 2%. It's no different than flying on that space shuttle, traveling thousands of miles away at light speed, Mach 7, and looking back at the earth and seeing where you came from, but yet you have traveled towards the future. So that tells me that the brightest star, or the most distant planet, Neptune, which literally takes 165 years to circle the sun one time, where the earth takes 365 days, which is just once to circle. So that means that Neptune is so far away, that light is not going to hit us before we perish. So that tells me the earth is literally operating at 2% and some less. So as a result, the neurological problems, the prisons, the hospitals, from building companies, etc., is all going to be a false perception of truth. It's a false vacuum, and we're building our house in that vacuum, and as a result, our cells mutate, make bad copies of themselves, because we never exceeded the 2%. What am I saying? If we can strengthen in mind, warp space and time, create a warp drive, meaning the mind can literally reach a certain level of power to where it can encode the information beyond 2%, and it can exponentially begin to grow 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. And before those that are at 2% count to 30 linear, the person that's exceeded 2% is already at 1 billion operation power. So it can literally extrapolate and see things that the 2% have not the ability to see, because it would take them years to see what those that are outside the 2% can see. No different than Interstellar. When he went into space, came back, his daughter was roughly 40 to 50 to 60 years older than him. That's just like you going to the beginning, 13.8 billion years, and subsequently come back after about a year, everybody will be 100 years old. And the reason being is because they're bathing in what they call the gravitational pull. In other words, the mind hasn't reached its full development. So as a result, it's dying. It's making bad copies of itself. So what does all this mean? All this means is we are unfortunately living in 2%. So in other words, we hate one another because we never came to understand that we are all one at 100%, minus friction and heat. But before we get there, we end up perishing. So we built our life and our law and our entire existence in this box, which is the matrix, at 2%. I want to believe there wouldn't be any racism. There wouldn't be black against white, Republican against Democrats, different religions. It would be one religion, and that would be the truth. Call that the truth, not even religion, but call it the truth. And that truth will subsequently unquestionably set us free. That's why you got cults. You got people that are brainwashed, manipulated for years. They could be the most intelligent person, but if you can literally program their mind and get them to believe something that's untrue, they will follow that lie, because they're dying every day and they don't have the ability to produce enough power to be able to see the lie. So as a result, they can't measure the position and or the velocity of the deception, and subsequently they end up perishing. Let me sum this up if I can. I believe that the mass majority of 7 billion people are living in darkness. And the reason they are is because of the fact that the mind is unevolved. You can call it prefrontal cortex, hippocampus, amygdala, whatever you want to call it. I don't care about the names. And as a result, that broken mind has built broken things. Now, to the broken mind, it believes that the things are doable because it can't exceed beyond the 2%. It can't upgrade, just like analog 5G. If you had 5G, you can process the information a lot faster than analog. But if you had an analog, it's going to take you 10 to 15 years to process, whereas 5G got it in a second. So before you process it, something else already came up, and you've never really processed the first thing because you got so distracted. Before you know it, you were placed in a nursing home or living a lie, your total existence. Now we're trying to fight against global warming and carbon emissions, and that's because we are in the 2%. We're in literally a pot. The pot has a lid on it, and it's simmering, and everyone's cooking. It's just that everyone's cooking at at a different speed. But ultimately, no one leaves the pot unless you can reverse the laws of thermodynamics. Entropy increases chaos and disorder. If you can reverse that law, you will leave the pot. And as a result of leaving the pot, you're in space at absolute based upon your ability to become weightless. No different than Basil and Richard Branson, those billionaires that went off into space, and when they reached a certain speed, they were able to unbuckle their seatbelts and subsequently float. Many of you are not as excited and interested in that as I am, I'm assuming, because I'm very interested, because it helps me to understand why we are not floating and weightless down here. Not floating as you see these people floating. I'm speaking in terms of breaking away from the steam within that pot, leaving the 2% to where you can see things as they truly are and not in the past. I know I said a lot, but I want you all to understand, I'm fighting for you. I'll be damned if I don't fight. I look at my grandbabies. I was out jogging this morning. I got a little tired, a little bit, just a little bit. I thought about Nile and Noel, my grandbabies, and I was saying their names. Nile, Noel, N-I-L-E. And I kept saying it, and I was able to make it back. So I'm one to believe that if God places our grandbabies into our lives so we can continue to do what we need to do in order to get to the end. Once you get to the end, you're unstoppable. And the reason you're unstoppable is because you've reached that level of sound that's above every sound. May God give you the strength and understand that we're going to take that mountain. And also, remember, they're either with you or against you, but it's not them. You fight not against flesh and blood. You fight against principalities and powers and rulers of darkness that's blinding their eyes, not the person. But don't let the principalities that have gripped that person to force you into quicksand. If you have to do what you have to do in order to get yourself together, you do what you have to do, and subsequently come back and rescue your sister and or brother. But if you hadn't yet gotten yourself together, you both will sink. And that's what the enemy's plan is, to blind you all. As they say, that algorithm system is set out to divide and conquer. Once we leave the 2%, the matrix, the pot, whatever you want to call it, we can subsequently reach the beginning, 32.8 billion years, and reverse the laws of thermodynamics and start seeing the world as it truly is, and start coming up with technology, things that are going to be fruitful and beneficial for us in this season. It's nice being back in Florida. I love you all, and I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to see you. But remember, you're definitely in my heart. Shout out to my grandbaby Noah, Winton, and Catherine. I'm looking forward to you guys coming back next in a couple of weeks, actually. Zion, Nile, Gabe, Walter, and Danielle, and also you and your family. And remember, don't ever quit. Don't ever quit. If you got a child out there that's being injured or hurt at 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6 years old, how can you quit? And that's happening to these babies. Don't ever quit. Hold your shoulders back, hold your head up, and get back in this game and tell the devil it's all or nothing. May God bless you all. God bless.